Hey, what's going on, Podcast Nation? It is Jason Harris here, and thanks for joining me on another episode of Strategy Mob. Today, I have two very special guests, people I would actually call friends. Can I call you guys my friends?
Absolutely.
Is that
Wouldn't be
okay?
the first. Wouldn't be the first.
I have Mr. Will Harris and the oh-so-famous Dan Liska.
The
I was going to
classic
say something else,
oversell.
and I just backed off. I'm like, I didn't say it.
Sanchioni knows what you were going to say.
That was quite the intro. I don't know if it's fit for a podcast or maybe something with a little bit of dimmer lights and
I know. I think we need like a
loud
disco ball
music
going.
and-
No, coming to the stage.
straight from Strathroy. I
It's
don't.
called
Dan, you're not from
Vegas if you live there.
Strathvig. Are you? You're not actually from Strathroy though, right?
No, but definitely got some of my sales team from Vegas for sure.
Gotcha. Some good people out there.
Absolutely.
Hey guys,
big shout
we're
out to
on a
Dark
podcast.
Majors.
Just okay, we're on a podcast. Can we bring
Stop
it down?
having fun. Stop
having fun.
Cut it.
Hey guys,
cut
real
it.
quick, everyone out there that's listening, watching right now, and don't know who you two gentlemen are, let's start with a quick origin story of who is Will Harris and Dan Liska. All right, Will, I'm gonna go ahead and start with you. All right, buddy.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Jason. Really happy to be on the show with you and Dan, both guys that I really admire in the automotive industry and like and consider friends. So a little bit about myself. I've been in the industry for 6 years. Grew up small town Ontario. Kind of came to the big city, the big smoke for university, and got into this thing called sales and marketing, and it just kind of stuck. So got my start in automotive with Kijiji, and did some time with Hearst Auto. Started the dealer group channel with Kijiji. Was their head of sales for a bit, and now I'm at Rapid RTC, and I'm heading up OEM and national accounts on the biz dev side. So. 6 years of being in the industry, connecting with great folks such as yourself, and really just trying to help dealers, whether that's at the single point retail level or at the dealer group level or at the OEM level. That's what I'm all about, is just trying to help.
Thanks, man. Appreciate that. All right, Dan.
No worries.
You're up, buddy. What is the origin story that is Dan Liska?
God, the origin story. You know what? If you wanted to ask about my sales origin story, you'd literally have to go back to probably about grade 3, where I started to download those Pokemon video games onto a floppy disk, and give me $20 and you don't got to buy a Game Boy or anything like that. And I think that was probably the first sale I made. I think the principal ended up calling my parents for that. So that's kind of the origin story, but. No, on a more serious note, I've been doing digital sales for about the past 15 years. Started my first company when I was about 14, building computers. And that was sort of where I fell into the nerdy digital side of things. And then from there, I really fell heavy in love with the sales and marketing once I got into college. And so that's where I was privileged enough to be part of a program called the Ontario Colleges Marketing Competition. Ended up winning a couple sales events there, and just totally fell in love with inside sales. Just for anyone that doesn't know inside sales, it's all the same fundamentals as outside sales, but we're using technology, these webcams, cell phones, all that stuff to get the sales done. And so that's really what I've been doing for the past about 14 years, is building out and growing high velocity inside sales teams. And that's really why I came to the auto industry about 3 years ago with Marty Meadows and Mobiles. Right now I'm director of sales with Autoverify. We got about 750 clients in Canada right now, and we just really help them to drive up their digital sales, reduce their cost, and improve their customer experience. So yeah, that's really what I'm bringing to the table here.
Well, guys, and this is one of the reasons I actually kind of wanted to bring both of you guys to the table. Look, our world has fundamentally changed. I don't think anybody's actually going to disagree with that statement. They may disagree with some of the other stuff we have to say during this podcast, but I think that's probably the one thing that nobody's actually going to disagree with. What I want to do, though, is I want to kind of take the direction of our conversation today towards what that new norm is going to look like. Right now, I think it is what it is. We're on lockdown. We're at home. I find dealerships are kind of falling into one of three categories. Either they have closed their door temporary for a few weeks, or they are going to minimal hours, or they're going to appointment only. Now, it seems like there tends to be a variation of how we're operating right now, but I think that's ultimately going to change here when we get to this new norm. But during this new norm, I think that's what that's when things really kind of change. And Dan, for yourself, coming from a lead generating company, and then Will, for you on the lead response side, all right, I kind of want to get both you guys' thoughts as far as what you guys think this new norm is going to look like. Will, I'm going to go ahead and start with you on this.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, Jason, it's super topical, right? And it's something that on a daily basis we're talking about and experiencing. I think that it is, if I was to look at the silver lining of this, it's for those dealerships that have already fully embraced digital. This won't be that big of a transition in terms of how they're handling leads and engaging customers from their dealer website or from tier 1 or tier 2. I think that it is going to be a unfortunate and harsh wake up call for a lot of dealers that haven't embraced digital, because this is the way that the industry has been trending, right? People have been wanting to do their research, do their searching, do their talking online, and then very minimally visit the dealership and be able to purchase that vehicle. Is our current state maybe expediting that, expediting that? I think that it is. And dealers that have already embraced this, and we're talking a process that has been slowly evolving, and for some dealerships and dealer groups, it's happening quicker, and OEMs. But this is a process that has been happening for the last, let's call it 10 years, right? So there's some dealers that are now, and I'm seeing it, and I'm just trying as a partner, I'm trying to help as best as I can to help them understand that, hey, people are going to be having these conversations. They're going to be, the sales cycle is going to be drawn out, but you still have to be relevant online and you still have to engage those customers. But the new norm isn't really that much different in terms of the online digital aspect as what we should have been doing already, if that makes sense. Of course, it's different.
Well, I think that's the kicker, right? Is that it's what we should have already been doing.
Bingo.
That been doing is kind of the key word, right? I hate to say it, but we kind of fundamentally have struggled just to execute the baseline of what a sales process looks like. We're going to say that within 2 weeks or 2 months or whenever the hell we actually get back and there's some normalcy, is that now we're going to have to execute kind of this new level of expectation,
right?
Honestly, man, I don't know. Like, honestly, I know from the lead response side, I don't think you guys. Well, I guess actually here's a good question. From the lead response side, do you see anything changing as far as when we kind of get back to that new norm?
Absolutely. I think that it goes back to that old adage that there's no bad leads, right? We'll go through this period of potentially, and again, we're still analyzing the data to see if there has actually been a drop in leads and if it's significant. But I mean, certainly more of a watchful eye is happening right now in terms of every lead that comes in, you want to maximize on that. But again, I look at it and I say, well, the good operators are already doing that. They're trying to maximize every lead. So in the new norm, when things return to normal, I think that there's, again, there's the Glenn Ross kind of analogy that there is no bad leads. And I think that that's how it should be looked at anyways, right? Like, you should be maximizing every single lead. I look at it when one of those digital leads comes into your CRM or your ILM or comes into your mailbox. Why are we treating them any differently than if they walk through your front door? And I think that realization is going to start to dawn on a lot of people that haven't already adopted it. Come the new norm, and it has to be, because that's how people want to transact. And this period that we're going through will kind of force that to be the norm. And I'll look at it from dealing with dealer groups. You have a conversation with dealer group that's generating I don't know, let's call it over 10,000 leads a month. And, they're okay with leakage. They're okay with 7% leaking through the pipes that aren't getting a response. Well, would you take that 7% right now? You probably would, right?
Well, actually, I think right now I would take every single thing that I possibly could.
Exactly. So, that kind of and again, I go through these I sit through a ton of trainings with OEM clients where we're going to dealership, and there's still this mentality of it's an e-lead. I don't know, like my customers are going to come back to me, and I don't know if I have time to respond to an e-lead. And you're kind of just sitting there, and I'm like, okay, you guys are like a premium brand, and like somebody's asking about a $120,000 car, and you might get back to them, and you know what, you'll suggest for them to come into the dealership when you're available next week. It's not how it works. That's not how the consumer works.
I think
right.
The e-lead is actually probably going to be the new normal lead. I mean, at least that's my thought and opinion. I mean, I think it's always kind of been the case. I mean, I don't know why dealerships haven't embraced that enough to understand that they get probably more e-leads than they actually get physical traffic walking into their dealership.
Absolutely.
But I mean, moving forward, if it wasn't obvious before, it's going to be incredibly obvious now. And Dan, actually, I think that's a good segue kind of into what you think that new norm is going to look like. Do you believe that the new norm is going to be e-leads over floor traffic, which in the past it wasn't the case? It was always floor traffic was more important than e-leads.
Yeah, I don't think there's any way for any business right now to be either surviving or thriving without digital being the number one foundation of their strategy. It's not just an option anymore. And I think, like you guys were saying before, the dealers that have already done this, they're like, you know what? Yeah, we got to make some changes, but we're in pretty good shape.
Yeah.
The dealers that haven't been doing this, respectfully, it's probably not so much a new world as it is just a catalyst, the fire that's lit under our ass that, okay, now is the time. Now is the time. Because if there's one thing that I always truly believe, it's that you look at the past to predict the future. And
totally,
when we look at recessions and periods of economic discord before, you can always kind of separate all the different businesses into a couple different buckets. Just like poker, we got our folders, we got our holders, we got our bettors, right? And let's take
rest in peace, Kenny G.
Yeah, no kidding. I know that. I was going to ask, was that like was that timing perfectly? Like, hey, Kenny G, cheers to you.
Sorry to interrupt, Danny.
No, not at all. It's good stuff. But I mean, I think every dealer out here knows exactly what we're talking about when we say the folders, the holders, and the bettors. And even then, we got to take the bettors and let's separate it into, some nice conservative reactive bets, and let's separate it into some big bets. And I think what we're seeing, at least from what I'm seeing from my vantage point across the industry, is a ton of creativity coming from dealers on what these bets look like. Absolutely. And anyone who's holding or folding, you might be holding or folding for another couple months, and then we start to go to the small bet and then the big bet, because what I'm seeing is it's the same sales process. It's, we talked about Glenn Gary, Glenn Ross. It was the same sales process back then: attention, interest, decision, action. Now we got the same exact sales process happening. It's just happening in a different place. It's happening digital. It's happening on their mobile phones. It's happening on your website. You're getting compared to how their last Amazon buying experience was, not the dealership physically down the road anymore, right? And so, we come back to some other old school stuff. Winston Churchill, strategy versus tactics. I don't know that the strategy of digital is changing. I know that the tactics of digital are changing right now. And if every single dealer is not pivoting to cell phone-based strategies, video-based strategies, either pre-recorded or live video, e-lead capture, not just, your grandmother's leads from 5 years ago, super leads that are going to actually allow you to move that customer from number one, trust, and then onto the next subject, trade, and then onto the next subject, credit, and then onto the next subject, payments, and onto the next subject, insurance, and onto the next subject, test drive. We need to be prepared to move that customer along that digital sales process sitting from home now. And unless your sales reps are set up to be able to conduct a transaction in their digital dealership, we're already getting left behind by the dealers that have been provisioning for this for the past 6 months, 2 years.
Oh, yeah. I'm totally with you on that. In fact, actually, I want to focus real quick because you said digital dealership. And, you know, I remember when my dealership first got their first website. I think it was 2001, maybe 2002, maybe 2002. And at that point, they actually thought that this was a digital version of their brick and mortar. Now, at some point in time over the years, all right, the website for dealerships kind of turned into just kind of a glorified brochure. Like they're just like they're almost like I have my brick and mortar, and then I got this like thing online, you know, where like people can fill out forms and like stuff like that, you know, like there was a total separation as far as just the way we approached both businesses, as like, you know, this digital business was here just to serve my brick and mortar business. Now, I believe that in the new norm, that's going to be a fundamental shift. That it is actually the brick and mortar business is now here to only serve our digital business. And I'd like to hear you guys' thoughts and opinions on that. I will go ahead and start with you, Will.
Yeah, I think that that's absolutely in order. I mean, look at how we transact on a daily basis with sites like Amazon. There's no storefront. Right. We're constantly buying. And I know that I receive my fair share of packages every single day here. Maybe I'm not ordering all of them, but it's certainly that's the expectation of the consumer. Right. The expectation of the consumer is, hey, I'm going to be online. I'm going to do my research for this product. And then I'm going to go to a portal and be able to purchase that and be able to get that into my door the next day. What are the only two industries that you can't really do that today?
No, it's a perfect point. I mean, really,
automotive, real estate, right? Like that's it.
Yeah.
And everybody else
held on to information, right? Like we've been the gatekeepers.
Absolutely.
You know, for some reason, like I know over the years, some dealerships have done a better job of, you know, just being more open about the information, you know, when it comes to purchasing a vehicle or leasing a vehicle. And, but now it's kind of like we can't control it. We can no longer be the gatekeepers of this information, right? We literally need to be the access point, but that's going to be a fundamental shift for a lot of people. And Dan, I want to get your thoughts on this before I go any farther, because I want to get your thoughts on how the digital business is now going to be the primary business, and the brick and mortar is really going to be the one that's going to be serving that digital business. What do you think about that, Dan?
Well, I mean, especially as it applies today, I mean, heck, even before the COVID crisis, I don't think anyone would have disagreed with the fact that that's where the puck's going, you know? But like we talked about with the COVID crisis, obviously we got a fire under everyone's ass. And I think that begs the question, everyone's feeling challenged. Everyone's feeling pressure. Everyone's feeling uncertainty. I don't mean to be cheesy about turning the challenge into an opportunity, but there's a reason that we've talked about every challenge being an opportunity. And like we look at upticks in data. One of the first upticks that just about every single website manager is probably able to see right now is they're seeing an uptick in their web traffic, right? And what is that? That's the opportunity. And you look at some other dealers that are really, really getting creative about this out there. You got like, you know, the Cott Auto Group out on the West Coast there. I think you had them on for a podcast the other day.
John and his boys are very cool people.
Yeah, John, Jordan, Brandon, great guys out there. They got a real good sales team too. And you know what they're doing, like they're just super creative. They do the basics very, very, very well. And they're going with this whole skip the dealer program. It's nicely laid out on their homepage. You can see exactly everything that you would need to do from a home shopper that's kind of under lockdown. And even over here on, you know, kind of the Golden Horseshoe region, maybe a little bit north, but the Drive Muskoka group, like Jason Armstrong stores, Jeff Green, if you know them. Check out their homepages. Right on the front homepage, you got a very clear step-by-step process of how they're going to actually do the essential service on your car, a crystal clear step-by-step process of how their digital dealership is going to serve you. And, those are just two leading edge groups that are truly putting the brick and mortar dealership secondary to their digital dealership. And then the only question becomes, what are my tactics to make the digital dealership work?
And will they maintain it? Because I think right now they're doing it because they have to. All right. The question is that, when things start to get a little normal, will they continue to do it, or will they go back to this older gatekeeper of the process, enforcing someone to have to interact and engage and purchase and service and buy parts from us the way that we define, not the way the customer wants to do so. You mentioned something that I want to kind of elaborate on a little bit is communication, right? It's like, these dealers that you mentioned are doing an amazing job of communicating, all right, what that process is going to be. Now, Will, this is a question for you. I'm going to kind of tee this up for you. In our lead response, because you guys are using, you work with one of the largest lead response tools in Canada. Is that true? Can I say that? Sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
It is, right? Is it North America? Can I say North America?
I think North America might be a bit of a stretch because we don't have a huge footprint in the U.S.
All right, we'll just say the largest lead response
in Canada and the UK.
Canada, for sure. Okay, so with that said, right, I've worked in rapid response for many, many years, right, and there's a great place for all the templates and the way that I want to standardize my communication efforts to a potential customer, right? Are you going to be reaching out, or is your team going to be reaching out to dealerships, and how to kind of modify those communication efforts to kind of what Dan was talking about, of really defining what that process is going to be when someone comes into the dealership?
Yeah, absolutely. Especially given this, given the current crisis with the COVID-19 crisis, it's been something that, since this kind of broke, I thought, okay, this is a great opportunity for us to be able to help dealers and help them understand how to get those responses out and how to kind of frame that conversation and how to guide them in terms of response. It's something that I've been working closely with on our marketing team. In terms of, hey, it's a great opportunity to at least set the framework, right? Like that's what Rapid's all about in terms of lead response, is that we set the framework for the response. At the end of the day, the customer does not want a templated, canned response. What gets customers through the door and gets a response from them is customizing that message to them, right? So Rapid can build, and what we're in the process of doing is helping our dealers kind of at least give them a framework to work within, right? So that they have that template, because we're in uncharted waters, and we also have the expertise and the data to be able to understand what gets a customer response. So if I do X, Y, and Z in that email template and in that email response, what happens? So we are able to see that and able to translate that to best practices and different templates that we can do. So we're looking at that hard right now, and how we can help our dealers. But at the end of the day,
I imagine that data's got to change, right? Like that's like it's like we had this kind of playbook, and I don't know about you guys, and you can totally disagree with me here, okay? But I feel like the playbook almost needs to be thrown out, and we have to rewrite probably a good 50 to 60% of the playbook when it comes to the operations of a dealership on the sales side, service side, parts side. What do you? How do you guys feel about that? Is this a modification, or is this like a full on like rewrite? What do you guys think?
So what I've seen, I'll jump in here on what I've seen, is that the elements of the deal are still the same, but the order is completely changed. And when you look at how we used to put together a deal in the showroom, typically it's credit last, and we go through the truck. Oh, I want to buy this $50,000 truck. Oh, but then I can't afford it. We got to sit in front of the F&I manager and have the bad news broke to us, So it's really credit last. We got to start thinking about, if I'm a dealership, what are my toll gates of that sales process? What toll does the customer have to pay to prove that they are in that next qualified stage of the sales process? And that's where, if there's one very, very small change that I'd be, recommending every digital dealership is making right now, it's credit first, because that's where the deal ends up kind of falling apart. So if you can make sure that that customer is holding that golden ticket to come down to your lot and pick out whatever they want, as long as they're in that approved range, well, everything else becomes secondary: the insurance, the trust, the trade, the payments, the budget, all that fun stuff. So, but that's just my opinion on it.
No, I actually think that's kind of funny because I remember this when I first moved to Canada. I was doing some consulting work for a Ford dealership, right? And I was there on a Saturday. They were super busy, and not enough salespeople to support the customers that were there at the lot, right? And I said, "Hey, look, I'll help out. Let me just entertain some people while the other salespeople are doing their thing, right?" And I grabbed a customer, and they were interested in a Lincoln Navigator. I was like, "Oh, great, that's an awesome truck. Let me show you a little bit about it." And then walked them over to a desk and filled out a credit application. Then I went and handed that credit application to the sales manager and said, "Hey, this customer wants to go on a test drive. Here's your credit application. Can you run that while we're out?" And that sales manager looked at me cross-eyed and goes, "What the hell am I supposed to do with this?" I'm like, "What do you mean? What are you supposed to do with that?" I mean, he wants to buy an $80,000 truck. Like, I don't know if this, I don't personally know this person. Do you? Like, I don't know if he can finance a hot dog, for crying out loud. And I found that that's kind of a Canadian thing. Like, we've never kind of been kind of a credit first kind of, culture. Is that, again, I'm an American, so, you guys can beat me up on this, but is that true? Is that kind of a Canadian logic?
I wouldn't say it's Canadian, because I don't know enough about the differences between, Canadians and Americans, other than the sports that we're interested in and how a fish out of water I feel when I start to talk about football. But here's what I do know. Consumers are uncertain, and that is where most of their uncertainty comes from, and most of their feelings of embarrassment comes from. That I don't want to sit in front of that good-looking F&I manager and get told I'm too poor. That's just
across both countries, though.
Yeah, right. And so that's where I don't know that it's geography dictating that behavior. I believe that it's just human psychology and consumer behavior dictating that.
Guys, can I throw something out there?
100% you can.
Are we overthinking this?
Please share.
Yeah, what do you think about that?
I'm just thinking of, in terms of process and the conversation that we're having, is that aren't we like really just reinforcing the fundamentals of being a good person and a good salesperson, right? Like giving them the information, being transparent, getting back to them in a timely fashion. I just go back to those. I go back to those basics, and it's sorry, I had to call it out because we think about this, and your head starts exploding, and dealers' heads start exploding when you talk about digital retailing and online dealership. It's like, guys, like, think about the sales process that you've invested in your dealership, and what the core fundamentals of a good salesperson is. The same goes for this digital transformation that we're going through. So why don't we just do it? Like,
but if
get back to the basics,
if it was the same transformation, then they would have already done it.
And that's where I truly want to jump in on that. That I really think that is exactly what we're talking about when we say, the strategy hasn't changed. That fundamental is the same.
Absolutely.
Deliver value.
I love that quote, man.
Transparent, right? But where I do believe it's changed is the tactics and the technology.
Yeah.
Because take, for instance, what we used to talk about. Remember when, Jay, you were saying I was the gatekeeper of information? We used to be the gatekeeper of information. That information was stuff like, what are the product specs? How much does this cost? Will you finance me? And that information used to be held behind lock and key, but now it flows like water.
Yeah.
So how are we executing those same fundamentals in the new world? I really think that it comes down to tactical switches, like as an example, prospect knowledge beats product knowledge. And Will, I think you were kind of touching on that a little bit when you were talking about the number one reason people aren't getting back to their emails and leads. You're right. It's that lack of personalization. They think it's a robot reaching out to them.
Yeah.
Right. So the car doesn't matter.
Simply
anymore.
The reason for that is because 9 times out of 10, it is a robot. Like, come on, guys. Let's call it what it is. All right. All right. We know for a fact that, I would say over 70% of dealerships out there are using copy and paste templates.
Yeah.
Like we are not being human in our communication efforts.
And Jason, what's the point, right? Like, hey, I work for an ILM tool that gives that gives templated responses. If you're using those templated responses, don't pay us money. Don't pay us CRM money. There's no point in using it. There's no point in using it, guys, because if you do an auto response out to one of Dan's great leads, guess what? You know what? You've pissed away that marketing money, right? You've literally pissed it away because you hit respond with the great templates that either the company
I think this is a good topic,
does,
and I think we should
you
take a
guys have
second
built.
here. We should take a second here and identify the difference between a template and standardized communication efforts, because there's a huge difference, and I think people get the two of them confused, right? Like,
for sure.
it is totally cool, and actually I think expected that we standardize our communication efforts, but I don't believe in templating our communication efforts. All right, let's make this super clear for everybody out there that's listening between the two differences of this. Dan, why don't you go ahead and take this one? All right, the difference between templating your communication efforts versus standardizing your communication efforts.
Yeah. So one of the things that, I talked about just scaling digital sales teams. If there's one thing I can tell you about scaling your sales growth, you got to have a defined sales process so that 10 salespeople are selling one way, not 10 salespeople selling 10 different ways. And so when we're talking about, a template versus something like a dynamic template or something like that, I think the really important part is it's just like cold calling, where you hear some people say cold calling's dead. No, cold calling's dead for people that suck at cold calling. Nobody gets back to email templates. No, nobody gets back to email templates when you've got them set up improperly and they're not customized for dynamic content, like Will was saying.
Bingo.
So a really, really, really good template. Hey, customer first name, you weren't expecting my call, but you had just come online and taken insert customer action here. I was actually reaching out because I have key benefit that relates to the action you took there. I know you weren't expecting my call, but at this point, all I'm hoping for is a quick conversation. Would you mind if we jump on the phone? ? Asked Dan.
But that sounds like a human, and I'm gonna tell you guys right now. I mean, I look, guys. See, I know you guys are. I'm in the dealership, right? I'm in the dealership. I'm consulting with the dealership. I'm looking over their stuff, and I hope that they're responding to the leads that your company produces, Dan, in that way. And Will, I hope they use your tool in that way where they actually customize the communications. But I'm telling you guys right now, the bottom line is they don't. All right, over 70% of the dealerships out there have some bullshit template response. It doesn't feel like a human in any way. Whoever wrote it out literally just went, "I am a robot" in the conversation of it. Might as well, right? So it's like Dan, that was perfect. I think that could have been easily used as a template. A template for communication, but that sounded like a person. I'm telling you right now, most of the stuff I see out there does not sound like a person.
That's right. Well, one of the fundamentals you got to be adopting in all your email communication templates, I don't care who you are, there's going to be some dealers out there that are like, no, I want to sound more professional than that. I would posit that no. You want responses. You don't want to sound professional. You want responses. You want people buying cars. And so just think of your emails as if it's, hi, my name's Dan. I'd like to offer you a free, no obligation trade-in appraisal. I'm so proud of our showroom. Like, just be a person.
Dan, can you sign me up? That sounded so awesome.
And right.
I want to deal with you right now.
Nobody's getting back to that.
To Dan's point, a couple of really good points, Dan, is that to that point that you just said is that our research and looking at we've processed 14 million leads, that people actually respond more when you're at like a sixth grade writing level than something from the university, because that's what people resonate with and it gets across the message. And it's about asking questions, right? Think about your kids. How many questions do they ask, right? And it's about doing that in your email responses, building that in. And it's about it's about asking questions, but it's about answering their question as well and talking to them like a human, because that's what resonates with them. Hitting send on an auto response, it sounds like I'm from Harvard and I know a lot about mahogany and fine wines. And guess what,
that's
man?
Because you do, Will.
Yeah, right. Even in the luxury world, that doesn't move metal. You know what I mean? It's about communicating and relaying and connecting with those people, because it's about establishing that rapport, right? And Dan, definitely that template that you talked out, I am going to steal that.
Well, it's almost like I've
It
tried to
happened.
get a lot of people on the phone via email
Yeah,
over the past 15 years.
it's kind of crazy.
Almost.
Hey guys, I got another question for you, and I'm looking at what I call value deposits. Okay, and I'm thinking at every opportunity that we have to communicate with our customer, and especially right now, like literally right now, and then the 2 weeks or a month from now, or whatever the hell when normal, some level normal comes back, right? Is I think every point of conversation has to have a value deposit. And I agree. Look, to increase your response rates, asking questions is incredibly important. But I see this as an opportunity in our communications. It's not just to ask a question so that we have higher response rates, but also to bring value deposits, to the people we're talking to. And I would like to get you kind of your guys' thoughts on what those value deposits should be in our communication efforts. Dan, I'm going to start with you on this one.
Yeah, so I love that you're using the term value deposits, because anyone in sales a lot of the time thinks in terms of an emotional bank account. We gotta deposit value before we can extract purchase price. And so I really just think that that aligns perfectly with what we already know. Me and Will were talking about earlier. The cheese hasn't moved in terms of what the sale is. The cheese has just moved in terms of how we make it. So we can't ask the customer into the showroom right now to appraise their trade. You know what we can do? Solve their uncertainty and tell them a range that it's going to be worth, as long as that's in a lot ready condition. And then we can make a value deposit on something like credit. Will you approve me? Yes or no, based on my background, not just 100% approval rate where I know I'm going to pay for it on the interest, right? Give them the value deposit of helping them actually figure out their monthly budget. I can't tell you the amount of positive feedback that we receive from dealers that say things like, "Yeah, no, we never even thought about helping the customer through their insurance budgeting until we started to get all this insurance stuff back." But then it was like our deals were better greased. We started to have more business done very very fluidly. And also, when it comes to the right there at the very end, we got to have an interactive nice way to book a test drive, because otherwise, if we don't create these mechanisms to online have our salespeople creating those value deposits, I would compare that to you guys going fishing, you dealers going fishing, and just hanging a net out the side of the boat and hoping the fish is going to jump in. Unless we're creating
It's
a
like the best analogy I have ever heard. That's literally what we're
that ain't
doing.
how fishing work. I
If
promise you
we're
that.
like, no, but seriously though, if we're communicating right now to prospects, and we're not bringing the value, it's literally just like sticking a hook in the water with no bait whatsoever. Like there's just nothing there for them to connect with. Will, what are your thoughts on value deposits, and maybe what would you say two or three examples of value deposits that can be utilized right now?
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, I think my first comment is I'm going to look on Amazon for Dan Liska book of proverbs and quotes and get that shipped to my door
It
immediately.
probably exists, and if it doesn't, I'm gonna make one.
Because yeah, it's absolute gold. But I don't think, again, I hate to kind of dumb it down and get back to basics, but just making a value deposit in a conversation and asking questions that show that you care about the customer, right? Let's say that somebody is submitting a lead on let's call it Tahoe, right? Pretty big ticket purchase, right? So instead of talking about towing capacity or what's under the hood, ask the client, hey, why do you need all that space? Why do you actually need those extra seats? And then that kind of, that shows that puts your deposit into that person that you're interested in. And then maybe that person comes back with, I just added to the forward line. I had my fourth kid and I need that extra space. It's not just me and the wife and 3 kids now. I got another one coming. Or, hey, I just moved to this country and I'm going to be helping move my family around quite a bit. So I think asking questions about that, showing that you care, is really, you're making that value deposit, not only for yourself as a salesperson to in the conversation, but also for the customer, showing that you care, right? And getting that back. So I think that, again, we go back to these fundamentals, and I am constantly kind of just circling back on Dale Carnegie's How to Make Friends and Influence People. It's like, guys, these are the fundamentals that we need to be doing, and we're not. And really, Carnegie, it's about fundamentally being a good person, right? And showing that you care. So those are some of the things that I can see is just genuinely caring. And it's interesting. Again, I'm a big data guy, and I've been to training sessions where, hey, X dealership within the OEM isn't doing so well, because guess what they're doing? They are having a super quick response time, because they're just hitting, as soon as the lead comes in, they're getting it on their phone, and they're going, okay, it's a trade appraisal. I am going to hit yes on the trade appraisal template and send it out. And they're like, yeah, this tool sucks. We're not getting any responses back from the customers. We were better off before when we were doing it out of our Outlook client, and every single one was different and looked completely ununiformed, and it was sent from my iPhone, and hey, once in a while I might have sent out a picture that came for me on the weekend, but hey, I was getting a higher response. Yeah, you're getting a higher response because you're forced to actually respond to that customer, right? So I've sat in trainings where they're like, yeah, this tool, I don't really get it. We're paying more money for it. We're not really getting the value out of it. And you start to peel back the layers of the onion, and you go, well, I can tell because we've got algorithms that run and really smart AI that does a bunch of stuff that I can't really explain, but we can tell that you're just hitting that auto respond, right? And you start talking to the salesperson and say, hey guys, like, get it. We're all trying to make a living here. We're trying to sell more cars. We're trying to connect with our customers. Guys, what about if you did this, right? Like, you think about this again, I go back to that 7-seater analogy. What if you went at it and asked them why that's important to them? Why they need that extra space, and start asking those questions, and start having an actual conversation. And it's, it doesn't happen all the time, but sometimes you see those light bulbs go off in those training sessions when you're sitting with 20, 30
No, I'm totally with you on this. I actually remember during the recession, when we came back from the recession, it was like this old school kickback to the basics. Like, get back to the basics.
Let's do it.
To your point, what you said, Will, like, show the customer that you give a shit, right? Like, show them you care. That's what it comes down to. In fact, actually, that's a perfect lead way into my next question for you guys both, because I think a lot of dealerships out there are thinking about, what do I communicate? How do I communicate? What should the dealership be communicating right now to show that they care about not only new customers but existing customers as well? Dan, I'm going to give this one up to you first, and then I'll bounce over to you, Will.
For sure.
Empathy, and then a little bit more empathy would probably be where I'm talking about. No, seriously, there's so many different ways to talk about empathy. I mean, first and foremost, it starts in the trenches. It starts on the front line. So when we're having conversations with our salespeople, we need to understand that all salespeople right now are facing incredible amount of pressure when it comes to, financial and all that stuff. And so the number one thing that dealers and GMs and sales managers need to be doing as a leader, it is your job to release pressure, not create fear. Release that pressure. Make sure they know, what? I understand times are tough. We're going to huddle together like penguins through the Antarctic winter, and we're still going to be hanging out here. But don't you lose a customer over losing an appointment next month, stuff like that. And then it goes the level up into the management office, the F&I office. What can we do with our financial terms to just show on paper that we're being a little bit more empathetic than we were yesterday? We obviously can't give ourselves away. Everyone's understanding it's a tough time for everyone, but it starts with empathy and then transparency. And I think that is really what's going to allow dealers to still conduct business without completely giving away their farm, and we've started to do that with a lot of our clients as well. And I just think that it's not just the auto industry. You look at, say, the Ontario renters and landlords thing. Like, if you're a landlord right now, you got to be calling your renters, showing empathy and being like, hey, what can you pay? because we talked about the hold 'em, fold 'em, and bet. The ones who are holding and folding and bet for landlords, they're just not going to have the rent paid. But by riding out and dealing with that challenge head on with transparency and empathy and inviting that, man, are those people going to be in a lot better position. And the people that have resisted adapting to change are probably going to be, grumbling the way things were. And then we'll say, oh, the times they are changing, and make some dinosaur comments. But
No, Dan, I'm with you on that, man. I think this
change.
is a time that we actually get to show that we're humans.
Yeah.
We're not just a business, and we are a business. And I don't think we should apologize for being a business right now. That thing I want to make perfectly clear. Like, we are a business. We employ many people. All right. We are here still trying to make a living. All right. But in our communication efforts, we have an opportunity to show that we are not just a business, but we're human, and empathy will be the key to doing so. Will, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think Dan hit it on the head with empathy. You've got to show that you care, right? And if you're not, I don't know. I think that the only other thing to add to what Dan was saying in terms of empathy is safety, right? In these times of uncertainty, what are we doing to make sure that you're safe?
Yeah, that's a good one.
Whether that is setting up an appointment. These are the steps that my dealership are taking to ensure your safety, your family's safety. If it comes to service, these are the things that we're doing in terms of sanitization and making sure that your vehicle is ready and safe. These are the precautions that we've taken as a dealership to ensure that you guys are safe. And I think that, really focusing on those two things, empathy and the safety portion, that, hey, the deals might not be abundant during this time. But you can wholeheartedly know that the deals that are done and the connections that you've made during this time with those customers will be genuinely felt, right? Because every single one of us is getting back to, again, being a human, right? And connecting with people and understanding what their needs are. And we're all feeling it. Every single person is feeling this current crisis, and it brings us all back down to the same level to be able to relate to each other, which, um, given what's going on, hey, I'll take that, that we're connecting on that human level. Like, think about the amount of video calls and things like that you guys have done, and how many times you guys have picked up the phone and actually had a conversation, right? Like, it's fundamentally changing how we're communicating. So to kind of sum it up, Dan hit it right on the head with empathy. But I think the second thing there is safety, and ensuring that your customers are safe, whether that's on the service side or if you do have the opportunity. Not all provinces are open for appointments, right? So ensuring that steps are taken to ensure the safety of those customers. And I think it'll go a long way.
Yeah. And you know what, just to circle back for that, on that for a second, it's exactly like you said about Dale Carnegie. Let's not forget about the basics, that every single decision made by a human is emotional.
Yep.
And so if we help these people through the tough time, believe me, they ain't going to forget it. And if you teach someone how to box, they're going to buy gloves from you when you go to step in the ring. They're not looking for the cheapest gloves. They're looking to buy gloves from their coach.
Yeah.
And I think we all agree that is the opportunity there right now at this given moment. I mean, I hate to say that there is an opportunity. I'm not trying to be, emotionally disconnected here, but there is an opportunity here as far as how we mold or even transition the perception of customers have of our business. Like, I don't think we need to be putting our heads in the sand and just going totally dark. I think there's an opportunity here where we actually can mold that perception. Guys, I know that's getting towards the end of our time, and I want to take this moment and thank you guys so much for jamming with me today. This has been an absolute blast. But before we do so, I do want to finish with your guys' just kind of final thoughts. I know we kind of molded over a lot of things today. So Dan, I'm going to give you kind of go ahead, your final thoughts. And then if you can finish your final thoughts with just kind of the best way to connect with you and your company so that people have that information as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, just to sum it up, people are saying unprecedented times. It's not really unprecedented. We had the old polio thing before. We've had recessions before. So are you going to fold? Are you going to hold? Or are you going to bet? Are you going to bet big? A lot of the winning dealers, they're betting big right now. When it comes to how you're dealing with clients, you got to use that empathy. Make sure that you're updating your sales process. It's got to be a defined sales process to be digital and have that empathy reflected in your messaging. If you're looking for any sort of assistance on that whatsoever, definitely look my company up. We've absolutely taken the lead when it comes to the empathetic approach. We're actually offering, we started offering it to our current clients. Literally, we're waiving their entire software fee for 6 months. Totally free, buddy.
That's bold, man. That's very cool.
Yeah, we started to get so much positive feedback from the current clients on that. We started to decide, all right, we're going to open this up to the entire industry at large, new clients as well. So literally, if you're an auto dealer listening to this right now, www.autoverify.com, just reach out, ask about the dealer support program, get all this good stuff for free for 6 months.
Dude, that's absolutely awesome.
Huge.
Hey, Will, you're up. Final thoughts and just closing remarks and best way to connect with you.
For sure. Well, it's been a pleasure, guys. But first and foremost, I think that these things that we are now focusing on is what we should be doing in good times and in bad, right? We should be treating those digital customers as if they're coming into your showroom. You invest so much money into your showroom, and the process in which you greet your customers and that sales process, as well as even like staging your dealership. Think about that. We should be doing the same things online. And this is just going to expedite that whole entire process. Those that don't, you're great people, but could be a harsh new reality for you. And those that are, and I, allude to just groups that I deal with that are doing a lot of these things that we're talking about, and they're doing it well. They are concerned. They're concerned about their people. They're concerned about keeping people employed, but are they concerned about their digital process? No, because they've been doing this for 5 years. And, I think that, I look at the three of us, and if any dealer or dealer group wanted to say, hey, Jason, Dan, Will, man, this whole digital thing is just, I don't know, man. I don't know about it. I'm just so confused. Everybody's throwing a bunch of stuff at me. I went down to NADA and oh my God, I think I signed up for a bunch of crazy stuff in Vegas. I think that it's having open and candid conversations with people in the industry that you can trust and saying, what the hell should I actually be doing and what's important? And I think that having trusted partners is really important in that, and being able to have real conversations and talk them through this situation and help set them up for, hey, we're gonna get through this crisis, but we're also going to set you up for future success. It doesn't have to be hard. And I think that this is the time to show your real value and show true partnership. And that's by being open, honest, and transparent with the information that you're sharing. And I really feel that, hey, guys and girls, we're going to get through this. And we're going to come out the other side stronger and smarter and faster than what we ever were before. And during that time, guess what? We've also been able to use this downtime. I don't think that's the proper word, because I don't know about you guys, but it's been busier than ever in the last 2 weeks than it ever has been before. Like, people say, oh man, you're in digital, like it must be slowed down. I'm like, you have no idea what like an exec at a dealer group or at an OEM sitting at home, working from home, how effective they are in communicating. But I think that those relationships and those communications that we have during this time will be priceless. And I really feel that, that human element, we're starting to reconnect. And, COVID-19 has allowed us to reconnect as humans and understand and bring that human element back to our communications and our business and our lives. That's not to downplay the tragic things that are happening out there at all, but I think that we're connecting more as people, which is good. In terms of connecting with me, again, I am here. I literally, if I can hash out 20 minutes to get on a call with any dealer in this country and help them through this. If you guys just have questions or want to bounce ideas, or, hey, I don't know what to do, I'm here. You can connect with me on Twitter. It's Harris Time. On LinkedIn, Will Harris Digital Automotive. You can just punch in Will Harris. It's kind of a common name though. but you'll see me about 50 pounds ago on my profile picture, and connect there, and just reach out, guys. Like, let's have conversations. Let's help each other out. I mean, what Dan's company is doing is phenomenal. Rapid. We are stepping to it, as well. We are, from April 1st to June 30th. We're discounting all bills, for dealers for all of our products, and we're feeling it too. We're feeling it here too, on our side. I don't know if Dan's the same way, but hey, we've had to say goodbye to good people as well. So we're feeling it as a business. We're all in this together, and we're going to make it through. And hey, I look forward to being able to do this, in person on the other side, when we come out of this, because we will come out of it.
No, man, hey, that's great. And I think everyone out there listening or watching right now should take Willa and Dan up on their offers. I know both these guys are absolutely always willing to jump on a call and chat it out. And even if you're not using their services, they are more than happy to assist in anything that they can do. Hey, guys, again, thank you so much for your time. This was a lot of fun.
My pleasure, Jay. Thanks for having us.
You guys have a good one.
You too.